Hey everybody, this is Aliénor from the Unapologetic Women Empowerment Dynasty, and you're listening to the Unapologetic Women podcast, the show for women who choose to live their legacies unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. If this is a space you're curious about, visit unapologetic-women.com. Today, we're talking about becoming untamed with Aliénor Bouzenad. Aliénor is the founder of Nuchi, the first brand to combine nut butter with ashwagandha. Born in Paris, she grew up in Brussels and later moved to London to study a BSc in sociology at the LSE, where she also received a master's in economy, risk and society. It was in London that Aliénor discovered the importance of wellness and new food scenes like veganism. After several years of struggling with her relationship with food and self, creating and launching Nuchi helped Aliénor through a difficult period of grief after 2 family losses during COVID. This pushed her to focus on self-care and wellness through food and other activities and focus on happiness in everyday, values that are woven into the Nuchi brand. Since its launch, Nuchi has had publications in The Times, a prestigious Olive magazine, and was on the Christmas list at the Financial Times, How to Spend It. It has done incredible collaborations with leading plant-based restaurants in London and other amazing wellness brands. Thanks so much for joining us. This is going to be a thought-provoking conversation with Aliénor. You are one of my youngest guests on this podcast. And it was interesting for me when you reached out and said, oh, yeah, I'm really keen on the podcast. And my immediate thought was, how much wisdom can a young woman have harvested in life in such a short period of time? And again, just showing me it's really not about how many years we walk this planet. It's about how intentional we walk on this globe and be present in what life is gifting us. So, Aliénor, welcome to the show. It's such a privilege to be speaking to you today, and I wanted to say thank you for reaching out and thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm really grateful for you to have this conversation and to give the space for us to talk. So I'm really happy to be here. And actually, it's so funny because the reason why I reached out, as I mentioned the first time we talked, is that I told myself, oh, I wanted to do a podcast, and then literally like 5 minutes after, I opened like the Albright Forum app where I saw you, and I just thought it was such a big coincidence that it gave me the courage to reach out, which I think is also great.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the beautiful things of your generation is your allowance to receive what you ask for without having to go into the drama that me and my generation have been conditioned to go into, in that, well, once I know what I want, then I have to go find it and I have to work hard for it and it has to be really difficult and I have to prove myself worthy of it. How beautiful. It was just, oh yeah, I think it's time for me to go on a podcast. Oh, look, there's a podcast. I'll just apply to that.
I think that's great. But I think 2 years ago I would have said, oh no, why would I say, And this year I was like, maybe I have something. Like, I think I had more belief in myself as well, which confidence in myself, which I didn't have, I think, like 2 or 3 years ago, or even 6 months ago.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start the question that I ask on all the podcasts, and it'll be interesting for me to hear your answer. And the question is, what does it mean to you to be an unapologetic woman?
I really love that question. I think to me, being an unapologetic woman is allowing myself to be who I am and to not judge myself before I even figure that out. And I think it's just like to be able to stand on my own, on what I know of myself, and to push myself to like discover the world and be in it without judgment or fear. And I think I have like a bracelet that says this on it, and it's to be untamed, kind of to not have really limits, whether internal or external, and to believe in yourself.
To
I
be
would say that.
untamed. Oh,
Yes, really like that. It's it's the name of the book by Glennon Doyle, and I really connected with that book, and I literally put it on a bracelet after because it touched me so much, and I really want to be like that.
yes. What comes to mind to me, even as you say that, is, for me personally, I've always been a bit of a wild woman. I've always been the one that goes against the grain, not to prove a point, but I just don't have the mentality of fitting in. I don't have the mentality of submitting. I don't have the mentality of not questioning. And it's been my experience in life that the more wild I am and the more free I am and the more joyous I am, the more others want to tame me because I make them uncomfortable. So to be untamed is twofold. It's not being willing to be tamed, but then also undoing the work that we have been conditioned through society, schooling, parenting, all with good intentions, but to be the good girl, to fit in, to be a good woman, to be tame, to fit in. So there's two things to that. It's the willingness to not be tamed, and then constantly untaming ourselves with the conditioning that has been happening for us.
I agree. I completely agree.
That's a powerful place to get to at your age. Will you
Yeah,
share with us a little bit of what happened that assisted you in getting to a space of going, no, it's time for me to be untamed?
yes, I think I mean, it's so long. I don't even know where to start. Um, but I would say like 2020 was like a really pivotal year for me. So now I'm 25, and in 2020 I was 23, about to turn 24, and I finished. So I did like my bachelor in London. I did my master in a really good school in London. I kind of like had all the everything like going so fast. I never really stopped to ask myself really what I wanted to do. Like everything was really blurry. And then when COVID happened, like I think as like the whole world, I kind of was forced to stop and decided to take 6 months sabbatical after college to kind of figure things out. And I think that it kind of started this process of introspection and just like being with myself and realizing that I was not always happy with what I found when I was doing that. Um, and then during the summer, I actually read that book Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which really changed the way I saw myself and the way I saw my body as well. Like I think reading books for me is a way that I found information and perspectives that I don't have. And then because I'm so young, I can read a book by someone who's 35, 45, 55, and kind of gain their perspectives on life, which I think is so like resourceful for me. But I think the biggest events were, so in September 2020, I experienced like two family loss super close to one another. And I think that really, to be honest, changed the way, like my life, I think. So it was the first time that I experienced grief, and it was my grandfather who died, so on my mom's side. And it completely changed the way I saw my feelings, the way I saw people around me, the way I saw like the way I felt in myself, kind of. And I think that was really like a deep moment of, I don't know how, like I think introspection and like pursuit, like I wanted to understand myself and understand what was happening in my body and in my mind. And I kind of started to untangle myself. Um, and I think it led me here, like where I am today. Um, yeah, I mean, I could talk about it for hours. So there's just so much that I learned about me. And after my grandfather died, my grandmother died a week after. And those two losses were completely unexpected, such a huge surprise. And it really left me heartbroken, I think. And at the same time, opened my heart to so much. And I don't think I felt like this before, ever. And I think it was kind of like such a breaking point that it allowed me to really like go deep in myself and understand things that I don't think I would have been able to if I just had like if I had just stayed on the surface of this. Um, and I think that's really what shaped how I feel and how I think today.
This brings a powerful image to my mind. So often people talk about heartbreak, and in their heartbreak, they shut down. In their heartbreak, they actually become hard. You use the heartbreak to break open that which was around your heart and allow
Yes.
yourself to open up because of the break. It's almost as though the conditioning was the hard shell, that the heartbreak and the grief actually broke open and allowed you, invited you, and you courageously said yes, by the way, to become curious about yourself and wanting to understand yourself. I feel this is a critical thing that is missing in society at the moment, and it blows my mind a little bit, is the lack of curiosity about self. People not seeming to want to understand what am I? Who am I? How is all of this working? And just allowing experts to dictate almost to them what to believe about themselves and how we operate and how everything fits together.
I completely agree. And I think what I always see in other people and what I saw in myself is that I was really stuck. I felt really stuck. And then when this happened, I just thought, I don't want to be stuck in this. Like, I don't want to be stuck in my experiences and in like traumas or things that went wrong. Like, I don't want to stay there, you know, I want to be fluid. I want to evolve. I want to look forward. And I think that I started therapy just before that because I just realized like it's becoming harder to stay who I am, how I operate, and to live with that, like with something that something is not working, than to actually start constructing something new. I think when it becomes harder to just stay as you are, then actually doing the process of like searching yourself, that's when I think you got that sweet spot of like just introspection. Is I rather do something than just stay and be in pain in that way, you know. um, and I think for me as well, like it's something that was really really weird, but when I heard that my grandfather had died, I felt so much sadness and so much pain. Like it felt so overwhelming, and it was the first time that I felt something so deeply. And then at the same time, I was so sure of my feelings of love towards him, my family, my friends. Like it was almost like paradoxical of, because it's the first time that I really experienced a deep loss, I think it's the first time that I realized that I could also love deeply myself or other people. And I think I never had that certainty before of my feelings and how real they could feel and how strong they were. And that was also, I think, a starting point for me. Where are those feelings if I can only feel them in those extreme moments? Like, where is it? And I think it was stuck somewhere in me. And that process of like untangling was also, I think, feeling all of this and being able to have it on the surface and to not have it be heavy anymore.
Can
I don't
you
know if that makes sense.
Yes, and I want us to go a little bit deeper into this because we are raised in a society at the moment that is numbing feelings, suppressing feelings, putting us on medication so that we can feel less. And people are terrified of being emotional. It's as though they truly believe that their emotions will kill them. And especially
Yeah.
when I had suicidal depression as a younger woman, and my belief was the depression was going to kill me, instead of understanding it was my beliefs about depression that was going to cause
Mhm.
me to kill myself. We are
That's
terrified of emotions, and yet you found that when you first started feeling deeply, that was the key to your liberation. Can you maybe talk a little bit into that?
Yes, I think it was just that it was so overwhelming that I just felt it everywhere in my body. And talking about avoiding their feelings, I also stopped like drinking for, I think after the second funeral, I stopped drinking. At first, it was going to be for 30 days. And I ended up not drinking for 8 months. not because I had not because it was an issue like in practice, but just because I realized that those feelings were not being processed when I did things like alcohol or overeating or overcompensating, because I was just trying to put them somewhere or avoiding them. And I think that for me, taking off the distractions and the ways that I avoided to feel my feelings were a big part of it, and to just allow them to be. And I mean, so many times during the year after, I just sat on my I just like lie down on my yoga mat and just meditated for 30 minutes and let everything come out. And I think that was the most powerful moments for me of healing, was just like letting my mind and my body like express it in like, maybe sometimes it was tears, sometimes it was noises. And it was really weird for me because I was not used to it, but I always felt better after. And I think I followed always that what feels good to my body, what feels good inside is where I need to go. And crying makes me feel better after, like moving my body, being still for an hour. And I think I followed that voice in me, like it makes me feel good, so I should continue to do that part. um, and I think also I was I'm still in therapy, but I was speaking to a professional therapist every week, and I think for sure that also helped me to like express my feelings and process the events as well.
How do you feel it's changed your life when you learned to trust your intuition and allowing yourself to follow what feels good?
I think it changed my life in so many ways, but it was really hard because I didn't know what to. I didn't know if it was intuition or anxiety or just following what I knew was familiar. So at first it was very confusing, but then I think it changed my life because I trust myself more, I trust my choices more, and that's why I started like my company that I do now, Nucci. It came to this like intuition that cooking was something that made me feel good. Cooking grounded me, creating something grounded me, looking at like creating a visual world, it helped me. And I think I just followed all of that, and I just started like feeling signs inside myself. Like for example, sometimes something happened and I just feel like that I'm becoming cold in my body. I just, now that I have a feeling, I always ask myself, where do I feel it? Is it in my throat? Is it in my heart? Is it in my belly? Like, where do I feel the feelings? And usually it kind of tells me if it's something that's stuck that I can't say, or if it's something that I feel deeply, that is really emotional, and maybe something that echoes a past experience that I had when I was a child. Like, I really try to locate the feelings in my body. I think it changed the way I experienced my feeling because I connected them back to my actual body, and it wasn't something that was just in my mind. I think it's more fluid between my mind and my body, and it helps me in business, in my friendship, in love, in my family. Like, it completely reshaped how I think I am in the world, basically.
That's very present. It's very present of you to kind of go, oh yes, let's follow the path. It's follow like the breadcrumb path, and
Yeah.
understanding how everything is connected. Our thoughts are connected to our emotions are connected to our feelings are connected to our bodies, and our bodies then expresses this entire process, whether it's through action or us getting sick or us resting or whatever it is. To
Yes.
already have that wisdom at age 25, which quite frankly I see most people at 60 still not having because they don't take the time. And I'm not criticizing, they just don't have the interest or the curiosity to want to understand how they work, and so they miss out on the entire process. Is so commendable, Aliénor. I'm really just wanted to mention that for you. And I want to take the conversation back a little bit to something that you said right in the beginning, which also hit for me. And that is that you first want to understand yourself and then explore the world instead of exploring the world to find yourself. Such a key distinction. When did you come
Sorry.
to that? When did you come to
Can
that point? So rather than saying that you want to explore the world to find yourself and to understand yourself, your process is, I want to understand myself and then explore the world. It's a very internal focus, which is in contradiction with what we hear majority of the time. People want to explore the world to understand themselves, to find themselves. What happened for you that you came to this order of control?
I think I'm not really sure. I would say that like in my family, we were always like exploring the world anyway. I would say like we would, I don't know how to explain, but I feel like your experience in the world is following you everywhere. Like you can decide in what moment how you want to respond to it and how you want to be in it. So I feel like basically I realized when I was young that however I felt, it would follow me, whether I was on a holiday or at home or at school. And I think that just basically that I couldn't really escape myself. And my father always says, like, there is what life gives you, and then there is how you experience it and what you make of it. Um, and I think that's just like the truth of, I mean, obviously, like, there's, you know, like, we all come in this world in different ways. But I think that if you manage to know yourself and who you are and how you want to be in the world, then you can explore it with a sense of like um being more grounded but also open. I think knowing what also knowing who you are is also not know what you don't know, so you can explore the world and just kind of be curious and open. But I think to not absorb other people's judgment or feelings or opinions, it's important to have like a stand of your own kind of, and be grounded in that way of like, I have an identity and it's malleable, it can evolve, but there is something that that will always be you. And I think it comes from that, I would say.
Beautiful. Let's go a little bit to your company, because it's such an interesting company. What did you study?
I studied sociology, actually.
Sociology. And then you went into lockdown, you took the sabbatical, you had the loss, and then you went nuts for nuts.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's really weird for me because grieving my grandparents and that whole process is kind of like almost my like thunder story for my business. But now this business makes me so happy, and my life now is like, I'm so happy in my life. I know it's weird to say, but I really am. That it's like so hard for me to connect the two, but I think it really led to another. I think I was just so lost that I just thought, and I really always wanted to do something in food. And I thought, okay, now is the moment because we're still in COVID. I'm still young. I'm so lucky that I'm able to be supported. And I just thought I want to take that risk now, because every other job that I was looking at, like sustainable investments, finance. I just thought to myself, they will be there in 2 years for me if I want to, if I want to like apply and do the interview process, like there still be like companies in 2 years. But my dream and my hope and what I wanted to do, I think I wanted to do it now, you know. And I think it was a way for me to, it's almost like it was a way for me to ease back into like society and be involved in the world by creating this and put something in the world that was like super concrete, you know. Like it was a food product, I created it, I made the recipes, I could taste it, smell it. Like it wasn't something abstract like a service or an app, or, and I think that was really important for me to have something grounding, you know.
Yes. Beautiful. And I love how, so it's interesting for me that you say it's happy. It sounds weird to be happy, which kind of brings me back. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you. Feel we have a little bit of a warped sense around death and grieving, and how it's an intrinsic part of a healthy life. In our denial of grief, in our reluctance to grieve and feel that deeply at the loss of a person, it's almost as though we are numbed a little bit, and feeling guilty for being happy because our lives go on when we're all going to die. And I say, it sounds callous, but death is inevitable for all of us. And if we don't make peace with that, and how wonderful that we get to make peace through our loved ones passing away sometimes. Like I remember my grandfather's death hit me deeply, and I was 13 years old, but he was my favorite human of all times on this
Oh,
planet. But my loss of him encouraged me to live more fully and to want to be happy. Why do you
yeah.
feel that you say, well, it sounds weird that I'm really happy doing this, when what a beautiful gift to be willing to mourn deeply, grieve deeply, and then let happiness flow from that.
I know. I think it just feels weird to say it because I think maybe I'm just sometimes it feels like I'm like self-indulgent, like, oh, I'm so happy, like it's so like it's just a statement that you don't hear a lot. I feel like even among my friends, like there is always days when people are happy, but like I don't know, sometimes I'm like, oh, are you happy? And people are like, no, not really, actually there's always something wrong. Or and I think to be like really in the state and to say out loud I'm happy is like being naive or being like a child or something. But and sometimes people like don't like grudge at that, don't really like that, but I think that's why I say it's weird. But it's true. So that's also something that I think is important to be. I'm not happy every day, but maybe I am. I don't know.
I want
That
to actually invite you to give yourself permission to be unapologetically happy.
Yeah, that's true. That you're right. Um, I think that sometimes I don't know, sometimes it's like hard to be like, yes, actually I am, like nothing is wrong. Because if we're so like pushed to like focus on what is bad and compare ourselves, but when we stop and just be in it, I think it's really okay. Thank you for the permission, because I think it's important to say that.
At the end of the day, we live in a world where misery loves company. I am constantly criticized for being a happy person, um, and told that I'm unrelatable because of how happy I am in my life. I became happy because I was tired of being miserable. I was tired of not being happy. And what you said is so true. What makes people miserable for the most part is the comparison, is the I should be, is the I shouldn't be. It is when we live outside of ourselves that happiness is guaranteed to elude us, because if we are constantly looking outside of ourselves, there is no happiness. The happiness is in the appreciation, respect, love, and acceptance of self, and then self in the world. And when you get to that space, why would you not be happy?
It's so true. And I think, I mean, to go back to like Nucci, like the business I created, the nut butters, I think that's kind of pushes me to do that every day, because I was like, I could do this in 10 years, but actually, am I going to be here in 10 years? Like, I don't know. So I want to be present. I want to be in myself. I want to feel super aligned. And I think that by making that decision, then every day I'm reminded that I made the decision. I am in it now. There's no I should, there's no maybe, there's no like, I'm doing everything that I really want to do at the end of the day. But I did that because I had to make a decision. I had to basically like decide, do I want to do this in 10 years or now? And now is the moment for me. And I think it pushes me every day to be in the now, because having a business, like, as you also must know, it's like there is always something new. You can never really predict what's going to happen tomorrow. There's always something unexpected. And I think that pushes me every time to be, every day I can decide to be, okay, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to find a job and not doing something for myself. And but it pushes me to be like, do I want this or no? And until now the answer has been yes, even when really hard days. And I think that's pushing me to be present now, and to be, look, I made a decision and I'm happy with that decision. And if I'm not, then maybe I'll change, but for now I still am. I think it really helps to have those kind of um, like pillars in your life where you're like, this makes me go back to myself every day, you know, whether it's a routine, the business, whatever it is for you, to come back to yourself every day, I think is so important.
Why nut butters? I have to ask, because From a business perspective, I'm like, why nut butters? I love nut butters, by the way.
That's so funny. I feel like, you know what? It's really a food. When I arrived in London, I mean, I grew up in France. So I'm French, but I grew up in Belgium. We don't really have peanut butter. We don't have that culture. We have Nutella, obviously, but I wouldn't say that's not butter exactly. So when I arrived in London, I discovered this peanut butter thing. I was completely obsessed, and it became a food for me to like really like indulgent. It became like something delicious. I like the texture, the gooiness. It just makes me feel cozy and good, peanut butter. And I think at that moment when I was like really feeling sad and bad and grieving, that kind of like it made me feel like at home. It made me feel cozy. And then I created other types of nut butters like hazelnut butter, like I also did cashew butter, which I don't do for my business, but at the time, and almond butter. And I think it's just something that is healthy, that makes me feel good. I like how it feels, and like the texture in my mouth as well. Like everything kind of made it feel good. And the whole process, like you have to grill the nuts, like then decide if you're going to roast them or not, keep the skin or not, and then the whole blending process. Like I think the whole process and then eating it made me feel really grounded and at home. And I think I needed that. And then I realized that it was actually maybe a good business idea, because at the same time, to help my anxiety and sleep and mood, I was taking ashwagandha, which is an Ayurvedic herb that can help with like a lot of those symptoms. It's really famous for like its relaxing benefits. And I was taking it in my coffee every day, but I got bored. It was changing the taste. And one day I was making nut butter and I was taking ashwagandha, and I just realized that I could combine the two because both of them were something that made me feel good. And then I did a bit of research and I realized that it didn't exist. And it really is the first, like I think I had the idea for Nucci like in November 2020, so like 2 months or 3 months after the funerals. And that was the first time that I really saw like an action, something that would really like made me like feel energized and like smile, you know. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, I have this idea, I can research it, I can go to a store and have a look. Like it was kind of like an impulse for action. And I think it was a little bit of a spark of like something new and something that I could do for me. um so that's how it started, and then it evolved from that.
And is your product only available in the UK, or do you ship them as well?
Yes, it's only available in the UK, but I will start shipping in Europe very soon. And then for big orders, like if people want to order like, I don't know, like 10 jars plus, they can always contact me and I do special deliveries. But for now, it's UK only. Because I think for me it was just the biggest market. And also I wanted to be based in London. And with Brexit, it just makes it easier, unfortunately, as a small business.
Absolutely. Sucks for the rest of us. But amazing for you guys.
Good, yes, I know. Especially in New Zealand, it's really far away.
Well, and because there's so many laws against importing, especially foodstuffs, that yes, it would going to
So
be an absolute nightmare.
I can
What,
imagine. Yeah.
so what do you take an unapologetic stand for in the world?
Oh, oh my God. Um, I think I don't know, an apologetic stand for in the world. I think, to be honest, like women's place in like society, like women's in, I don't know how to describe it cessantly, but just the idea that there are so many ways still that women are not seen or valued or taken into account. And I just think that this is something that we need to push more and more. Um, and I would say it sounds very vague, but then I don't know. I feel like it's just something that is so overwhelming in society that it's just something that we should continue to push, and just like women well-being, women safety, women being valued in companies, corporate offices, like everything basically. I think we should continue to push because it's still not enough.
Can I play devil's advocate on this one?
Yes, of course.
Is it that we need to continue pushing for these things, or is it time for us to invite, inspire, and encourage women to start loving themselves more, with, finding their own self-worth? Is it time for women to come to themselves rather than us pushing women into the world?
I think for sure I agree that women should come back to themselves and do that. But then I also think that I meant as a society we should push. Like I think that men also need to realize that. Like I think there are so many things to do like on the structural level as well that
Yes.
can help women come back to themselves and be in a space that is safe enough to do so. And I think it can come from both at the same time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree with what you're saying as well.
I love that. And one of my things is I'm a huge contradictarian when it comes to the whole women's movement, because of what I've observed and because of what I've lived. And I still believe that the work is to be done by women at this time. I think that men are way more supportive of women than what the cultural dialect is right now, and that women are the ones that need to start finding themselves, start coming home to themselves, stop comparing themselves, come surrender to self, and then do it for each other, and then men will automatically step up to the space. I really believe that the masculine is in support of the feminine and wants us to rise. And I don't believe that we have to push in society. I think that we will inspire society to uplift us automatically as we extend ourselves, as we become fuller of ourselves. But there's so much that would go into that, right? And I think a huge part of that is giving ourselves permission to be unapologetically happy, to be unapologetically worthy, to be unapologetically in love with ourselves, to be unapologetically full of ourselves, quite frankly.
Yeah. Yes. And also to like be real with ourselves, to be honest. Like sometimes I have a feeling and I'm like, oh, what is she doing? What is she wearing? Why? And then I'm like, why do I care? You know what I mean? And I think we also need to be honest with ourselves and be like, am I like what do I have this doubt? Okay, it's fine. I had it. But now like what do I want to do with it? You know? And I think we need to check ourselves in sometimes and be like, this is not something that I want to focus my energy on. Like, what do I want to focus my energy on? And I completely agree with you in that sense. Like, it's also an internal work of like, what do you want to put in the world? Who do you want to be? And I think in that you're finding yourself and letting go of like what you think of other people and other women specifically. Um,
I feel like women like you are changing the world. Women like us are changing the world because we're changing ourselves, and then we change how we're showing up in the world. The world will respond to us. I think it's time for women to stop responding to the world.
I think I completely agree with you. And for example, with your podcast and like having different women on it and asking for their perspectives and like kind of sharing voices and messages, I think is so important in that process because as you said at the very beginning before we started recording, you never know when someone is going to hear something that you say at a particular time in the specific way you said it that's actually going to impact them. Because sometimes you can hear the same message over and over, but then someone at some point, the way they phrase it change the way you feel or the way you experience or the way you see things. And I think that the kind of conversation that you have and the podcast that you have is so like important for that. So I really love the Unapologetic Women podcast, and I'm so happy that we had this conversation and that I can be a part of this as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what a powerful story that you have shared. Thank you so very much. How do
Thank
people
you.
connect with you, sweethearts? If a woman is listening to this conversation and she goes, "Oh man, I love her vibe. I love what she's saying. I just want more of her." How do they connect with you?
Oh, that's so nice. I think so. Instagram, at Nuchi Food. Nuchi is NUCCY Food. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well, Aliénor Bouzenad. Probably my name will be in the title. And always send me a message. My email is also on the Instagram. I love to chat. I love to talk about nut butters and wellness. So contact me if you have a nut obsession and as like nut butter obsession.
I'm with you 100%. There's nothing that you can't put a nut butter on that doesn't make it taste better. Just saying. The only
Yes,
way I can eat apples is to put peanut butter on my apples. Otherwise, I don't eat them.
That's such a good idea. No, but seriously, I don't know what I would do if my children have a nut allergy one day.
Oh dear God, let's not even put that out in the universe. They will be nut allergy free.
Oh my God.
Darling, thank you for honoring us with your story, with your insights, with your wisdom, with your incredible positive outlook on life. How refreshing, how beautiful, and honestly, young women like you humble me in your wisdom, in the choices that you make at such a young age. And I can't wait to see what life is going to be like because of the choices that you've made in this world. So thank you so very much for this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the kind words. This was so great. Thank you for creating this safe space. It was a really amazing experience, and I'm so glad I'm so glad we could share.
Beautiful. To all our listeners, thank you so much for being here today. I hope, like me, you are taking away that really the choice to come home to ourselves can happen at any age, whether you are 20, 40, or 80. It's the decision to come back to ourselves that is the game changer in the game of happiness. And until next week, don't forget, we get to live our legacies unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. Have an amazing day further. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at The Unapologetic Woman and on LinkedIn at Al-Naj. And if you're interested in experiencing the Unapologetic Woman Friendwork Soiree, book in for our next open meeting at unapologetic-women.as.me/unapologetic. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.